Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Lee Simpson. You'll be able to submit questions over the next 30 minutes in the chat. So please do put them through as we go, and we'll leave some time at the end to answer those questions. For any questions that we don't get to, don't worry, we can get back to you after the webinar's ended and we'll respond to those as well. Before I hand over to Jake from YouGov, I just wanted to talk briefly about the purpose of the survey. So back when Deloitte was set up 175 years ago, our early clients were those in small businesses and industry, and we helped them grow and capitalize on the opportunities of the industrial age. And kind of now in 2022, our goals are the same: to help businesses of any size prosper and flourish and take advantages of the technology that's available in the here and now. So prior to Brexit, businesses were able to move their goods between the UK and the EU without making customs declarations. And obviously that has changed since we left the customs union. And this is impacting businesses of all sizes, including small businesses who face challenges in moving their goods and complying with customs in an efficient and cheap manner. And so the purpose of our work with YouGov was to ask small businesses about the barriers that they face to international trade. And so with that in mind, I'll pass you on to Jake and he will take us through the findings.
Thanks, Lee. So like Lee mentioned, thanks so much for joining the webinar today. As part of the project, and just like Lee mentioned, we spoke to senior business leaders and C-suite individuals at SMEs within the UK who are either importing or exporting goods from the UK. So as part of the presentation, what I want to try and show you is the sort of story behind what SMEs are thinking at the moment in terms of goods and importing and exporting from the UK, and then also answer any questions at the end as well for you. So as a starting point, currently 1 in 3 enterprises use freight forwarders to submit custom declarations, in comparison to 17% who are using sort of a customs broker or potentially an agent. And we see some of the differences when we look at the sort of different mechanism by enterprise size. So when we look at micro level enterprises, for example, 1 in 3 are using a freight forwarder in comparison to nearly half of small enterprises that we surveyed. And then of the larger enterprises, so the medium-sized companies, 1 in 4 are using a customs broker or potentially an agent. So when I go through the presentation today, what you'll see is that I'll be mentioning sort of micro, small and medium-sized enterprises, and how we've defined those is within the 1 to 9 employee bracket is a micro-sized business. 10 to 49 employees makes up a small enterprise, and then 50 plus employees make up a medium-sized organization or enterprise. Obviously, with those custom declarations via maybe a broker or an agent, there's obviously that sort of cost implication to think about as well. So from the research, we found that the majority of businesses pay up to around £40 per declaration. And as you would expect, the typical amount of declaration or per amount they pay increases in line with the size of the business size of the SME, with 26% of medium-sized businesses paying up above £40 per declaration, which you would tend to expect across the SME landscape. But then if we think about the sort of cost per declaration further, just over half of SMEs think the cost is expensive. Some think it's expensive but affordable, so they can manage the different processes in hand. But then 1 in 4 are actually exploring other low-cost options, and even 1 in 5, which I thought was a really high but interesting number, are even thinking if the cost could impact their ability to trade with the EU. If we look at a particular group of SMEs in a little bit more detail, we can see that sort of 2 in 5 small SMEs are exploring low-cost options. And if we think about the previous slide, where I mentioned around sort of half of SMEs are using a freight forwarder, the big question there for me then would be around actually what sort of added value are SMEs seeing from a freight forwarder, and what other sort of helpful things can we provide SMEs when they're trading with the EU, importing or exporting. Then thinking about the preparations, what SMEs have been making for January the 1st, there's some really interesting highlights what I want to try and sort of show you. So as a starting point, only 21% were prepared for the changes coming into force from January the 1st. And when we look at the range of SMEs surveyed, you can see the disparity between micro enterprises who are potentially least prepared, with 45% stating they either won't be ready or haven't started to prepare. From this SME research, we would expect to see approximately around 66% of medium-sized enterprises and 63% of small enterprises to be prepared for the changes coming into force from January the 1st. And from this research, we've tried to understand actually what I'm going to talk next is actually what SMEs are doing next as part of that challenge of preparing for those changes, and how are they going from being unsure about the changes to actually understanding how that can affect their business and what can they do about it to become more profitable with the EU. So in terms of how people are sort of preparing, 80% of businesses from what we surveyed have taken some sort of steps to prepare for the changes that are coming into force. Of the larger businesses, they've taken the opportunity to seek advice from advisors, from government, from trade associations, and from other sort of individuals who are knowledgeable in this area. Out of those, though, who didn't seek any advice, so the sort of the three options on the left-hand side of the chart, like you can see, I'm actually wondering if they either knew about the changes so much that they might not have needed to gain any advice, or they might not have actually known where that advice could be coming from. So they need some promotion around what guidance there were in the local networks, whether that was local guidance or even national guidance, potentially from government or from a national organisation. Then thinking in the present and what activity or trading activity SMEs could be looking to do. Some businesses have actually already reduced the amount of goods they're trading with the EU because of the changes that came into force in from January the 1st. And interestingly, some have even set up offices in the EU to help with that trade between the UK and EU. And as you can see, of the larger enterprises, we're finding that actually those are creating new offices in the EU, but they're also trying to increase the amount of goods that they trade with the EU as well. And is there potentially a relationship between actually, if you position an office in the EU, does that help to increase demand for goods as well, potentially? So whilst there's actually general sort of confidence by SMEs when importing and exporting goods, I would actually say they are very, very skeptical of whether their trade will increase or decrease because of the changes that have come into force. So whilst 1 in 3 think there won't be any change, and maybe they're not sure at present, nearly half of the micro level SMEs think they'll see a decrease in the amount of goods traded in comparison to 1 in 3 of the larger SMEs. So thinking back to the previous slides, like I mentioned, while some SMEs are looking out for guidance from government, from trade associations and from other bodies, there's still that unsure or that sort of unknown element of trading with the EU at the moment for SMEs. And I actually see that moving forward, I see that that unsureness actually increasing potentially until more guidance and more support is provided to SMEs in the sector. Then thinking about sort of January the 1st and how confident SMEs are thinking around importing and exporting. So half of businesses at the moment are confident, like I said, of importing and exporting from January. And we could actually see the confidence levels increase with business size, with 1 in 3 medium-sized enterprises very confident, in comparison to only 17% of micro-level businesses very confident. And this is where maybe that we could provide more support to the micro and small enterprises to increase the confidence levels of providing goods and importing and exporting to the EU. But obviously HMRC are switching to a CDS system, and as part of this research, what we wanted to do was understand what impact those changes would have on SMEs, who you might have even taken the survey if you're on the webinar today. So when it comes to those changes with CDS, SMEs require a lot more sort of that knowledge transfer, so they can understand the changes to import and export tariffs. This can be shared with their internal teams, and then obviously provide any training to staff who are maybe new to the business, or even have been at the business for a number of years, because of the changes that are going to be impacting on their business. And obviously you could think about this in a range of different forms. So the training could be in the form of sort of how-to guides, it could be helpful webinars, or even could be information shared with a range of SMEs within the same industry or sector. So everyone's coming together to help with a particular issue that SMEs are thinking about. But then when we look at sort of the businesses, particular businesses in more detail, you could argue that the changes to a CDS model affects small and medium-sized businesses more than micro. So whilst understanding the new format and training staff are all really important elements for every business, regardless of size, the medium-sized businesses now also need to think about registering on the government gateway account, setting up direct debits for duty deferment accounts, but then they also need to start thinking about sort of the import and export tariffs and the internal and external processes, thinking about sort of controls and duty control. So future thinking, and what, as part of this research as well, we were thinking about actually what were SMEs thinking in the future, and what would they like to see from different organizations to help support them. So obviously sort of customs control was a really big highlighted area from the research. And to improve this, 1 in 3 SMEs said they would gain guidance from experts in the field. Some would go to a trade or membership body, and then others would also look out for sort of government advice and seek advice from elsewhere. Those individuals who were not sure or other, I think also some of the comments what we received back were actually looking out for sort of news articles, and when government would release different articles and journals about guidance and what to do next in terms of next steps. As part of those next steps though, what we found was that nearly 2 in 5 businesses haven't considered doing their own declarations directly with HMRC. So 25% of businesses who are currently using a customs broker are intending to declare directly with HMRC in the future. And then interestingly, what I thought was a slight surprise, even from the research we have conducted, is that 40% of freight forwarder users haven't considered doing their own declarations directly with HMRC. So it's the sort of balancing that between value for money from what a freight forwarder is providing, but also what else could a freight forwarder offer to SMEs in the future to help support them with trading with the EU or importing or exporting. So thanks very much for listening to all the results. I hope it was really interesting. I now want to pass you on to Lee to share some thoughts on Customs Clear.
Thanks, Jake. So as Jake described, Deloitte has launched Customs Clear, which is a new software product that essentially allows businesses to submit and manage their own customs declarations. This software is connected to CDS, which is the new customs system in HMRC. And our objective here really is to try and reduce some of those barriers that Jake spoke about. So how can we drive down the cost of customs compliance, make it easier for businesses to do things themselves, make sure that there's greater visibility of declarations that have been submitted and the movement of goods, And given that it's a digital solution and integrated to CDS, provide real-time feedback and alerting on the status of any given declaration. So if you could just move forward one slide for me again, Jake, you can access that service at customsclear@deloitte.co.uk, or visit customsclear.deloitte.co.uk. So yeah, I think that's the end of the kind of webinar presentation. Jamie, if you've been able to kind of collate some of the questions that we've received through the last 25 minutes or so, would you want to just come on and introduce the questions?
Thank you, Lee, and thank you, Jake, as well, for that very interesting insight from business about their hopes and worries about the changes in customs rules. Thank you very much. As Lee said at the start, you were able to submit questions during as Jake was presenting earlier just then. We've had a few in, so thank you very much. If we don't reach yours, don't worry, we'll get back to you after the webinar has finished. But let's just take two, I think. First one, I think this might be for you, Jake. What are businesses saying since the start of the changes in January? So obviously the survey was conducted at a point in time in December, but what are businesses saying since the start of the changes in January?
I would actually say they're very, very similar to the research we've conducted here. So obviously we at YouGov are monitoring SME opinions weekly, monthly via different trackers. And one of those elements is around customs, so importing and exporting of custom declarations and the general issues what they're facing. And what I found from working on those different sort of projects is the same issues are coming up weekly and monthly from SMEs, where they're still looking for guidance, they're still slightly unsure in terms of what to do next, and they're also thinking about actually the bottom line of, if I need to spend £40, for example, on a customs declaration, then what's the added value for me back as as an SME? So I think if we were, for example, to conduct this survey this month, I would be very, very sure that we would see the same sort of issues coming out from the research, even potentially even more apparent because of what's going on in the sector and how SMEs are feeling in different industries.
And just from your own experience, what was the most surprising finding in the survey that you conducted?
Good question. I think it was actually the sense of yes, I knew from sort of news articles and on social media that SMEs and businesses are maybe unsure and worried about what's coming next and what to do next. But I actually didn't understand how big of a problem it was until conducting a lot of this research in terms of the size and volume of the issue for SMEs and that unsure moment of where could SMEs go next for that support and who could help them, because there's maybe not too many organizations out there who can help them from a customs declaration point of view. And it's for them, it's knowing where to go next and where that support can be from an ongoing basis to build that relationship with them.
Very helpful. Thank you very much. And Lee, I think this one might be for you. This is the second webinar that this person has joined with us as part of this series, and they ask, how do I know if my business is eligible to try your Customs Clear?
Good question. Thanks, Jamie. I think the product is applicable for those UK-based businesses who are moving goods between the UK and Europe. Obviously, this is business-to-business movements or business-to-business sales, import or export. I think in terms of kind of questions and making sure it's right for your business, I think the best thing to do is probably to connect with us on the email address on the screen at the moment, or obviously visit the Customs Clear website as well. But in broad terms, it's those businesses moving goods between the UK and Europe.
Very good, very good. Okay then. Well, thank you both. We can give everybody a bit of time back. Thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you to you, Jake, and to you, Lee. We hope it's been helpful. Thank you for sharing your lunchtime with us. And as Lee says, if there's anything that if there's any other information that you need from us, then please do get in touch with us at the bottom there, customsclear@deloitte.co.uk, or visit customsclear.deloitte.co.uk. Bit of a mouthful. But thank you very much indeed, and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.